Mambition, 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 Mambition. Welcome, guys.
Hi, everybody. It's Alex.
And Tiffany. Always trying to be normal, but really failing sometimes at this.
Yeah, you're definitely failing on that front today. Great to have you with us again, guys. We've got a great guest for you today. So we've got Gifty Enright with us. She's a workplace wellbeing expert, and she's the author of the brilliantly named book Octopus on a Treadmill. She's helping career mothers thrive professionally without sacrificing their well-being. She's a 3 times top 101 global influencer and TEDx speaker. She blends Western science, Eastern philosophy, and African wisdom in her approach. Having overcome burnout as a working mother, Gifty now empowers women to redefine success while sharing insights from successfully raising her own children to adulthood. Her expertise has been featured on Good Morning Britain with clients including Citibank, IBM, and the Home Office. Welcome, Gifty.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Gift in the building.
She's in the house.
Yes, girl.
Yeah, so good to have you with us. What an introduction, and can I say, what a perfect name for a book. Like, I really, really, really feel that as a mother. I don't think you could have summed it up better.
Thank you. And for transparency, it was my husband that came up with the name for the book.
Oh, well done him. You picked a good one.
Yeah.
So, tell us a bit about yourself, Gifty. We've obviously had that introduction, but particularly Tiffany always likes to go to people's backstory and delve a little bit deeper into the experiences that have led you to where you are now.
Right. So, yeah, it's been an interesting life. It's been a long one too. But I moved here when I was, 19, 20, from Ghana, actually. I moved to UK to come and study. And then, that in itself was an experience and a half. And anyway, so did the usual thing, very ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder. Believe it or not, I did train as an accountant, although even my accountant is surprised.
Are you like the most accountant?
Right. I was the most non-accountant accountant ever. But being African is like, it had to be a profession, it had to be a lawyer, accountant, a dog, one of those. So I thought, all right, then if I must. So anyway, so did that and then crossed over into IT and then did the corporate consulting thing for forever before I went out on my own. But whilst I was doing the corporate consulting thing, climbing the ladder, that was when, I had a good fortune to get married, have children, and very ambitious, I was going to take over the world and that's it, until, one day I woke up and I was clutching a spreadsheet of 14 symptoms and I thought, oh, hang on, this is not the life I wanted. As far as I was concerned, I was going to have the big house, the car, the kids, the whole thing the society wants you to take. And then, I'll be smiling and... Yes, I was going to have it all and then I would be literally crushing it at the top, right? Anyway, I had it all and I didn't feel like I was crushing anything. I was exhausted, I was irritable, I felt unwell. I thought, what is this about? Because if this is what having it all is about, then I don't want it. It just, my children were just watching me fall asleep on the sofa when I stopped because I was always go. And I was just unhappy, deeply unhappy on so many levels. So something had to give.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. I think so much I can take from that. And I think one of the reasons why, I really liked you and what you bring to this conversation is that wisdom and that lived experience. Because I think for so many of us, especially with me, Alex as well, we're kind of in the early years of motherhood where everything feels important, everything feels like a priority, your ambition. It's like, it's really hard to find that juggle. So I'd love to know, now you have grown up kids, right? Do you mind telling us what sort of age they are, just to give people that perspective as well?
Yeah, 25 and 20.
Wow. So I imagine you've seen it all. There's nothing we can tell you on this podcast that's new.
I'm sure there'll be one or two.
But, I'd love to know, I think, just obviously there's so much like you can share, but I think looking back now, what would you kind of say to someone like us? You were like, we've got the 4-year-olds and, you know, in the, you just what I mean? Such a big
Yeah,
question. I feel like so much
yeah,
I
to
feel
it, right?
like for me, it's like,
Yeah.
what can't you see when you're in it as
yeah,
well? Like, looking back,
yeah,
what do you maybe wish you'd done differently? And
yeah,
yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
wisdom that we need.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
someone
There's
who's
a
ahead of us.
lot. There's a lot I wish I had done differently.
Okay.
First off, I didn't know what was important.
Okay.
So when I was struggling to have it all and burn myself out, what I was striving for was what I thought was important, but that wasn't what was important. That, in terms of how now I see my children, I see their personalities, and there are a lot of things I would like to go and retrofit. In the times that they needed me there to be paying attention to them, I just wasn't present. I was there physically, my mind was elsewhere, you know. And I didn't understand the importance of those little moments. And like now, they would tell me a memory, and oh, mom, do you remember blah blah blah? And of course, I remember, but that was a time I hated what I was doing. I resented what I was doing. But for that child, it was a very important thing for them, and it's almost look back, obviously, I was who I was then, but if I had known then what I know now, I would have paid more attention to the little things. I would have paid more attention to making them feel seen and heard, because that was my most important job as a mother. My most important job as a mother was not to make them have the latest pair of Game Boy or trainers, which is what I thought. So once I was killing myself on the corporate ladder and I had to make more money, and it had to be the house, the schools, whatever. No, no. My most important job was to build their self-esteem, to make them feel that no matter what, they are somebody. And that only comes by you being a present mother, being there for them, making them feel seen, and modeling what it's like really to, live like you belong, like where you are is where you're supposed to be. Rather than, for me, even when I was with them, wishing somewhere else, thinking about the next board presentation, I just wasn't present. And that is one of those things that I wish I could go back and redo.
Wow, that is such an uncomfortable message. I will say, because I think we live in, especially in a very kind of Western society where we've been taught that our career is so important. We've been taught that there's no time like the present. Everyone, this kind of urgency to climb the ladder to get the significance we get from our careers. Yeah. And I think sometimes being a parent can almost contradict that, because being a parent, like you said, is being present. So how can do you have any ideas of how we can build that into day-to-day lives in a way that's practical? Because I think it's quite a nice message, but I think, and we all know it, but I think it's hard to actually implement it.
Super hard. Like,
Yeah.
particularly, all the technology. Like, I definitely struggle with trying not to be on my phone when I'm around my son, but it's really hard.
It
I feel
is.
like we're all quite addicted to tech
Yeah,
now, and
it
it's
is.
hard not to get sucked in with.
Yeah, it is. And for me, as I was evolving, and when I sort of started waking up, certain things had to become sacrosanct. Like, if we're having mealtime and we're sitting down, we're eating, no phones. After that, you can go do whatever you want with your phones. But at that time, we had to be present. We had to listen to each other. So putting those little things in. And then also, for you, the mother, I didn't understand the importance of my role, right? I, I don't know, gave birth because that's what you did. I wanted kids. I wanted the 2.4 kids and the suburban thing. I wanted all of that. That's what I just didn't think. I mean, if somebody ever asked me, do you want kids? I'd be like, what kind of stupid question is that? Everybody has kids. Do you see what I mean? I didn't even, it wasn't something that I thought, okay, yeah, this is it now. No, it was just one of those things that was on my list of achievements, you know, to take, you know, to, if you like, earn my mother's approval, earn society's approval. I mean, like I said, I'm African. When you have children, you become like a proper woman. Otherwise, it's like there's something missing. So I hadn't stopped to think about the responsibility, if you like, do you know, of what I had done in terms of these children. So for me, I had brought them into this world. I had to make sure they were safe, make sure, give them all the material things, which I was doing, because that's what you have to do to keep them alive, and all that. But what I didn't understand is the importance, if you like, of that emotional development, the things you don't see. And that is what the little things contribute towards, do you know? You dropping everything when they've stubbed their toe, when being there for them and whatever. And, you know, you listening to them when they're telling you something that is really, you're looking at it and thinking, seriously, if you knew the problems in the world, but you still, you know, for them it's a big deal. And you have to, you know, that bug that's been squashed and the heart is broken, you have to be there with them, make that time for them, because that is what contributes to their self-esteem. And you can, I tell people this and I'm not sure they get it, do you know, because for me it was like, yeah, get them to top schools, whatever. You can be in the top school, but if your self-esteem is not where it's supposed to be, you will not be able to take advantage of all that privilege, right? And so, whereas if your self-esteem is where it's supposed to be, you will be able to fight against whatever obstacle is in your path. So if you like, when you do the material way, like I did to start with, it's back to front. Because you think, give them all the material things, you're trying to buy them the privilege, which is what I was trying to do. And you can buy them all the privilege you want. Without the right self-esteem, they cannot take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember when I was young, you know, first job I had as an accountant, I did work as a trainee accountant for 2 minutes. And this woman who had kids then, she was one of the admin staff, and she had kids. And I remember having this argument with her, because I'm like, how dare you have kids when you've had them, when you haven't got to a certain point? Wow. You know, and the management thing is like, is irresponsible and da-da-da-da, do you know? And now, obviously, you know, I was young and stupid, do you know? Because the kids, they don't care about those material things that we tie ourselves in knots over. Obviously, there's a basic level. They have to be safe and fed and all. There's a basic level, but that is not, that basic level is not what is going to make you burn out either, do you know? And once you get past the basic, you have to then be able to say no and put boundaries in there and understand that your role is actually to nurture them, to nurture their self-esteem. And that is what is going to help them when you're not there to be able to process life.
And I think in terms of self-esteem and confidence, they're so closely linked to like mental health.
Yes.
And actually having that kind of robustness that I think, you know, obviously there's an epidemic, isn't there, of poor mental health in young people at the minute.
Yes.
So I see how important that is in terms of raising that.
And people go on about Gen Z and they think they're snowflakes, right? And I keep calling them cornflakes, and my kids laugh at me when I say cornflakes. But, you know, they're snowflakes, and, you know, they're all what they care about is their mental health, and they don't want to work hard and all the rest of it, right? They're a different generation, and they come from a generation of seeing their parents work hard and burn out. And they're like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And so in the workplace now, they will be the one looking at the stats of the good place to work. It's not for them about the money anymore. They want their mental health. They want a place that they will be nurtured. Whereas previously, My generation, it was all about the company cars and the mobile phones and that's what, and the big expense account. That was a status symbol. For these kids, right, what they measure status with is changed. It's more about a life well lived, a life that you enjoyed, having the experiences, having the friends, and all the rest of it. Because again, they talk about the lonely generation and stuff because, you know, they have been left by parents on their mobile phones and what. So, you know, they've lost that connection, and this is what they're trying to get back. You know, and that is why there's an epidemic of mental health with those kids, and now we almost have to go back and retrofit because their parents were too busy chasing something else, you know, rather than, well, in my case, you know, and I was lucky enough to wake up, you know, my body woke me up because the way I was living just wasn't sustainable, and so when I burnt out, I had to come back and reassess what is important, you know, and structure my life that way and start being present and start putting things in place. I mean, do you know, when I say I wasn't present, you know, at the start, it wasn't like I wasn't there all the time. I was, but I could have been far better if I had understood my priorities.
Wow. I think this is I love this because I think it kind of fundamentally comes down to how we see ourselves and what we can then pour into our children. Because I think a lot of this kind of goes back to this idea of, I don't know, like knowing what's enough, not defining yourself by other people, not comparing yourself to other people. Because I think it sounds like we as parents need to do the work on ourselves to then recognize what's important. And then we can then make the right decisions on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
So, for example, you know, like you said, you know, we are so we're so bothered about maybe keeping up with the Joneses, and because we're doing that, we're chasing the career ambitions.
Yeah.
We forget that our children, then that way you might, I don't know, not that you want to say, can someone get a nanny or not get a nanny? I don't think it's so much that. It's so much thinking about what are the moments that you should be building connection with your children that maybe you can forfeit something else for. And it's something I think about a lot because I work from home, right? And previously, I had this idea that, oh, you know, maybe the grandparents can pick up my kids. And not that I can't do it, but I almost feel like I might miss out on some success at work. And recently I've been having this kind of uncomfortable conversation with myself about maybe I you know, I will pick them up from school, and because in that moment we're walking together, we're talking, because I think it again comes down to what can we maybe sacrifice in ourselves that seems like a big deal, but in the longer term we can actually look back and realize that that moment of connection we can have with our children now. Because I don't know if you've seen, for example, I mean, there's a show, Adolescence, how do you say it?
Yeah, I can't pronounce it either.
Yes, same. I don't know if it's a Nigerian thing. I blame the Nigerian man. It's an information. I'm like, don't blame. I can spell it though.
I can spell it, but can't pronounce it. Yeah.
So I think, and I think
I'm
that goes
halfway
back.
through it at the minute.
Oh,
It's
okay.
scary, isn't it?
Oh, I think we might need an episode or Mambition episode on it actually. But I haven't seen it yet, but I will. But I think, again, it just comes down to kind of the way that maybe schools are bringing up the children, the way that maybe society is bringing up our children, and we're not, it's not like we don't want to, but we're just so busy. So, I guess
But busy doing what, right?
yes,
Busy
I
doing
suppose
what?
you're right. Maybe we need to think about this
So
comfortable thing.
I came across a phrase the other day, and I thought I write it down, but I've forgotten the exact thing. But basically, you need to work out your irreplaceable.
Okay.
I don't know. The value is not the word. When I came across it, especially, I should have noted it down. But there are certain things that only you can do and only you should do.
Okay.
And there are certain things that others can do. And you need to be clear on that. Right. For me, for example, one of my baseline non-negotiables was that nobody was ever taking my kids to the doctor apart from me. Right. So, I mean, even though I had nannies and whatever it was, if the child was sick, I had to be there. And I had to be the one. So in that case, whatever board meeting, whatever was happening, no. The answer was no. I can't do this because, you know. So you need to work out your irreplaceable, whatever the word is, that you need to do. What I'm saying about finding out what is important doesn't mean you have to do everything yourself. For example, the grandparents picking up the kids, I think is a fantastic thing.
Okay.
Because it helps them develop their relationship with them too, and also gives you respite, do you know? And so it's not about you doing everything, but it's you knowing what your irreplaceable value is, and that is non-negotiable. And then everything else, delegate, like like a bandit, just delegate. Like for me, why did I have to do the cleaning? I mean, yeah. Do you know? Do you see what I mean? Why did I didn't have to. Absolutely didn't have to. But yes, I wanted to bake with the kids because I love baking. It's stuff we do. Like my eldest now, he is such a foodie, and I take full credit for that. The fact that he's a foodie because of all the weird stuff that I exposed them to when they were growing up in terms of cooking and stuff like that. So it's work out the bit that you want to do, right? And the bit that you have to do because you are the mother. It doesn't mean you have to do everything, do you know? And so that's that guilt trap that the people guilt themselves into, because some people think if you're not prepared to look after the kids 100% of the time, why did you have them? No, I don't subscribe to that. That's a fallacy. Right? And if you have to look after them 100% of the time, what you're building is resentment. And that child is not going to like you either because, you're giving up everything. You're looking at them thinking, I gave up everything. I gave up my high-flying job for you. And then you want the child to be grateful. And then I didn't ask you to do that, And so you don't want that either. So it's that balance, knowing what is your irreplaceable value, what it is I have to do, what is it I can't delegate, and everything else, please delegate like your life depends on it.
I love that, especially around the cleaning, because I hate cleaning.
Same.
I feel like it is definitely one of those things that, like, for example, filling the dishwasher at night time after dinner. I generally do that, but I've started to leave it until after Ted's asleep, and then I come back down and do it, because otherwise it's only 15 minutes or so. But that I'm cleaning up the kitchen of the precious little bit of time I have with him. So,
Yeah.
I'll do that. I've just swapped it round to try and fit in that time with him before he goes to sleep.
Yeah.
And then, it's 15 minutes of my relaxation time less, but I've given him a bit of quality time.
Alex, I think you froze there.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I think, I'll say something whilst we get sort of Alex back on there. I think a lot of what you're saying here as well, a lot of it builds into like our ability to have boundaries.
Yes.
To maybe say no as well.
Yes.
Because I think, especially in the workplace, those are things that women struggle with.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you have for someone there? Maybe you as maybe not so much less flexibility at work, but they are thinking about these things and how they're raising their children, but they struggle with the confidence side of what women typically struggle with.
Yeah, and it's like I'm actually writing an article now about responsible leadership, and in the workplace where leaders need to be sensitive to the fact that mothers have other demands, right? And so in terms of what you're asking them to do, deadlines and whatever, if for me, towards the latter part of my corporate life, when I was more confident and more established and whatever it was, I wasn't starting before 10, for example, right? And so I was able to negotiate that. This was, when you always have to traipse to the office and stuff as well. But again, it's because I saw an older woman do it, so it gave me confidence, right? Okay. And so when it comes to the boundaries, you need to know what it is you need for a start. That's your baseline. What does it do? Because that is what helps you with the negotiating. Because when I'm coaching women and it comes to boundaries, a lot of the time, they don't even know where their red lines are. Because they've been saying yes for so long, right? They don't even know where they should be putting no. So my answer is, if you're not sure, right? Because it's either a hard no or a yes, right? And so if you're not sure, it's a no. Really, if you're not sure, it is a no. Start with a no, and then you can roll back from there rather than start with a yes and then trying to roll back. So if you're not sure about something, it's a no. And people also think that saying no makes you a bad person and makes you inflexible at work. And of course, they want to be flexible at work. And this is where the responsible leadership comes in. Do you know? Because if the leader is being responsible, they will not be asking you when they know you have to go do the school run, you know, to be doing something 30 minutes before when they know it's going to take an hour and you still have to do the school run. So that is responsible leadership there. I mean, I remember one time, one manager, I said to him, listen, I have to go. The school had called, because the school, they always call thinking everybody's at home and now you can drop everything and come, right? I was an hour away, I had to hop on the M25. And I said to my boss, I had to go. You know, my son is not well, the school is closed, I had to go. And he said, oh, but before you go, I'm thinking, seriously? Right? And before you go, he's out, da, 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 da. I'm looking at him thinking, seriously? But for us mothers, and I know it's hard in the workplace when there are people who don't have the same pressures. There are men who are parents, but they have wives at home doing that job for them, so they have the flexibility that we don't have. And it's easy for them to step in, absolutely step in and, you know. But this is life. In life, there will always be somebody ready to step in. And you have to decide, am I worth it? Are they going to wait for me? Whatever, right? You have to decide in yourself. Because if you think about, if I don't do it, somebody else, there will always be somebody. There will always be somebody younger, smarter, more beautiful, whatever. That is a fact of life. And so what you then want to know is my own self-worth, right? I am worthy, and so I am going to ask for this time off, or I'm going to say no. And to the usual saying, those who matter will understand, and those who don't understand don't matter.
Oh, I like that. Am I back in the room?
Oh yes, you are back.
You are back in the room.
Yeah. Okay. I like that because I think one thing I said, Gifty, when we first met you was, oh, I love your confidence. I want to bottle it up. I want to put it, and you know, I can make millions. And I always wonder that because I think there's a confidence that just comes with life, right? There's a confidence that comes with making mistakes. There's confidence that comes with the struggles. And I'd love to tap into your wisdom on that in terms of, you know, building not building children, how do we, what's the word, for helping to bring up resilient children, because I think resilience plays a key part. And I think, because when I look at my life, a lot of the things that I now am happy for and appreciate about myself are the things that when I was young I thought, oh, it's a bit hard, it's a bit harsh, but you know, it didn't kill me, obviously, you know, it's a balance, but I look back on it and I'm glad. So I'd love to know, how do we, do you have any tips now we can help our children be more resilient whilst they're young?
Yeah, and it's quite important actually in terms of resilience, and because I'm sure you've heard the saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," right? But sometimes what doesn't kill you also puts you on Prozac, so you have to be careful.
Oh,
You know, you have to be careful. There's a balance there.
The balance,
and when it comes to resilience, your children are what you are rather than what you say. So they need to see you model that resilience. They need to see you do hard things. They need to see you stress and come through it, right? Because what we tend to do for children, we tend to hide things from them. We create this vanilla world for them, and we're setting them up for failure, really, because the world is not like that. And they need to see you frightened, but go through. Do you see what I mean? And so obviously it's got to be age appropriate and all that. But if you want to bring up those resilient children, first off, number one, as soon as they're upright and they're walking, give them a job. You have to, because that's how they develop their confidence. When they're doing stuff, they're figuring stuff out for themselves, do you know? And again, so we have all these women burning out because they're doing everything. They're filling up their dishwasher at 12 midnight. What the hell? Right? Delegate, give it. And so when you're delegating, that includes your partner, includes the children. And when they start walking, when they start walking, is it one? Give them a job. If they have to drag their, I don't know, onesies or whatever down the stairs themselves and put in the laundry basket, give them a job, do you know? And that helps them develop the confidence. And then also, do not be afraid to allow them to fail sometimes, because we rush in to make everything okay for them. Do you know, we don't want the children to struggle. But by taking the struggle away from them, I'm sure you've heard about the what is it, the butterfly, before it becomes a butterfly, in that cocoon thing stage, is it the chrysalis, whatever it is, right? And when it's coming out of that cocoon, it has to struggle out, and through that struggle, it kind of squeezes the liquids out of it, and it comes out a butterfly. Without that struggle, when it comes out, it will die because it hasn't developed the resilience, right? So, and as parents, we just want to make our children's lives easy. We're not doing them any favors, really. We're not doing them any favors. And so we have to empower them to deal with their own problems, and we have to listen to them, and it's more about what are you going to do about this, and can I make this suggestion, and allowing them to figure out their own problems. That is where the resilience comes from. And also they see you slaying it. They see you struggle and overcome, right? They see you, so Tiffany, when you asked me just before we started this podcast about how I was, and I'm like, don't ask me that question today because I'm having my dog put down today. And they saw me cry, and it's important. And they were comforting me, and it's important that you show that vulnerability in front of them. I've got boys, they needed to see that it's okay for them to cry too, and if they see you break down and pick up yourself and, saw me cry, this is literally 30 minutes before I came on this podcast, but now they come back because they come back from the vet, and what have they seen mom doing? She cried, and now she is podcasting. It gives them that template. You can deal with difficult stuff, but then you go on. They need to see you do that. That is where the resilience comes from.
Wow. Oh, sorry about your dog.
Thank you.
I'm also interested, I think, what you said about burnout, because I think that is such a, obviously, unique perspective and unique experience, because I think sometimes ambition is a trick. It can become toxic, right? I'd love to know, how did that experience and change your approach to work? Would you say it made you less ambitious, or did you just put your ambition in perspective and doing it differently and doing it in a much more sustainable way?
Yeah, I think I will go to my grave ambitious. I'm one of those people. I was born ambitious. I'm always biting off more than I can chew. That's me.
Okay.
So my ambition will never go away, but it was burning me out, right? I didn't have sustainable ways of dealing with it. At one time I was in the corporate thing. I had a side gig. There was something else going on. It's like, at one point you asked me, I had to get my head into 3 different things at the same time, right? So I had a lot on my plate. I'm just one of those people, and for people like us, whatever types they call us, we are more susceptible to burnout. And so I had to have practices in place to make me know when to stop, to make me know when to restore, because sometimes you're so below the baseline that you have to come back up to the baseline. And so for that, is down tools and, Epsom salt baths and walks and everybody take care of me, and then there is what you do in terms of maintenance, which is just part of your routine, and then certain times, this is life, you were, I think it was maybe a month ago, it was like go, and then travel, and then come back straight into International Women's Day talks everywhere. And I was just all over the place in terms of the intensity of what I had to do. And the moment I could stop, when everything stopped, I stopped completely. Like that weekend after IWD, I did nothing. That's not the time to be cleaning. That's not the time. I did absolutely nothing. I demanded to be waited on hand and foot. Right? Because I was in my restorative phase. So now I understand what to do. Whereas previously, I would have done that go, like, be on 3 continents in 3 weeks. And then after that, still keep going. right? And that's how you burn out. And I don't do that nonsense anymore because I understand my body now. I listen to my body. I know how to look after myself. And when you're young, I suppose you get away with all sorts of pulling all-nighters because your body lets you. When you're older, your body will not let you do that anyway, thank God. So you don't do that nonsense anymore. But it is more about my ambition will never go away. But now I have firm boundaries in place. I know what to say no to, and I also know how to take care of myself.
So what's your advice to women who might feel like they're on the verge of burning out but haven't been through a burnout yet? How do you spot that? What are the signs they need to look for? And what's your advice for them to not let that happen?
Yeah, so the sign you need to look for, you get to a point where like there's no joy in anything anymore. Do you know? No joy. Everything, you just can't be bothered. Do you know? You just go through the motions. And if it gets to that point where you're going through the motions, because some of us who are so duty driven, do you know, then you know something is not right. And in my case, I had lots of physical symptoms as well. And so so you have that apathy, you have tiredness. Do you know? I mean, I was constantly tired. Just literally, whenever I stopped, I would fall asleep. I was just constantly tired. I was irritable. And of course, that's a function of being tired, because if you're tired, you don't have enough energy to do your life. And so whatever people are asking you for is one step too far. So that makes you irritable as well. Do you know? And so if you find those things happening, then, and for me, of course, I had the perfect storm of, I was perimenopausal as well, so that didn't help. But throwing all that in, and I do list the symptoms in my book, but if you find yourself experiencing any of those things, then it's about stopping, really, to start taking care of yourself. And I would say, for most people, start with sleep. A lot of people don't get enough sleep. And even when they go to bed on time, they can't nod off, right? Because they don't have good sleep hygiene, and they just, you know, they're telly blaring away all sorts of lights, and then they think they can just jump into bed and sleep. It doesn't work like that, you know, because your mind is still whirling. So it's about learning to wind down and whatever, and having the routine of sleep, good sleep hygiene. So it means that when you actually go to sleep, you sleep and you have good quality sleep as well. And making the time for that, because people just don't. They just don't, you know. And they're up. I don't know. I used to be one of those watching Netflix at 2 in the morning. That was me, you know. And sometimes I did that because I just didn't have the energy to go upstairs to sleep, to climb the stairs. It was easier just to stay on the sofa and just watch trash on TV. So I would say, look after the physical side of yourself. So eat well, sleep, make sure you're hydrated, exercise, because before all this, I didn't exercise. I just didn't. I hated it. You know, absolutely hated it. Because I didn't understand the importance of that. So look after the physical side. And then also there's the emotional side. You know, how do you process stress? Are you just sitting on stress? And for me, when I'm stressed out, give me a couple of days of stress out, and then I literally feel like my skin is burning up. That's how I feel it in myself. It's almost like my blood chemistry changes, do you know? And then I'm like, oh no, I've got to, something has got to give here. And so how are you processing emotions and stress? And because stress is a part of life, so you cannot, you know, sometimes stress just happens. So when it happens, what do? Do you know, having those protocols in place to help you with stress and managing your emotional state, do you know? And I think everybody needs a spiritual framework, even atheists. You need to believe in something, because at some point in everybody's life, you get to a point where you think, this is too much for me. I can't do this, right? And that belief in something else outside yourself, I don't care what it is, allows you to tap into an external, I don't know, stimulus or whatever to kind of keep you going. Because if you're just relying on you yourself and you're tired and you haven't slept well, you haven't eaten well, you're irritable, you get to a point where your mindset is all over the place. Suddenly you start thinking, oh, I can't do it, I'm a failure, whatever. And it's just because you didn't sleep well, you haven't eaten well, or all those things, you know. And so everybody needs some sort of practice, and for somebody it might be a walk in nature, whatever, you know, to help you reset. And all those things together will drag you out of wherever burnout you are in.
Thank you so much for that. I think I really like the tips, because I think as mothers who are obviously very busy people, sometimes that self-care can feel like it's selfish. It can feel a bit like, you know, who are you to have time for yourself, right? Or make time for yourself. Your priority is your children, make sure they're okay. But I love what you're saying there, because it sounds as if, you know, by looking after ourselves, then obviously we can then pour that out to our children. Do you have any perspective on that, on how, you know, not that we need another case for why self-care is good as a mother, but do you have any perspective on how that maternal energy linked back to children, and how to encourage anyone listening to this that actually more time for yourself, looking after yourself, looking after your health, how that would pour back to your children in a positive way?
Yeah, so if you're not looking after yourself, say you're not sleeping well and you're tired and you're irritable, who are you taking it out on? The people closest to you, the children, right? And the children, because they're young, they don't have the wherewithal to process that, oh, hang on, it's not me. Mom hasn't slept well for 3 days and her hormones are all over the place. They don't have the wherewithal for that. So they just think it's me. There's something wrong with me, do you know? I remember one time, I forgot what I did, and next thing, you know, I shouted at my son, and you know, I got all tearful. He's like, oh my God, I made my mom cry. That's how he processed it. He made his mom cry, right? But no, it wasn't him. It was my hormones. And so the kids do, and this is the responsibility for us. When I talk about responsible parenting, responsible leadership, there are people whose emotions and self-esteem and confidence are impacted by your lack of sleep.
Wow.
Somebody's personality is being determined by you not taking care of yourself. So when you're thinking of self-care and you think it's optional, it's not. If you don't take care of yourself, that child will be sitting on some psychologist's couch blaming you for their mental F-ups, right? And it's all because you did not take that time to care for yourself. So it's a lot deeper, right? And they're also watching you. You are providing them with this template. This is how to do life. And is that what you want to give them? No. Do you know? So you owe it to yourself, or if you don't like yourself and you hate yourself, you owe it to your children to protect their psychology and their mindset. And that's why you need to do that self-care and take care of yourself.
I'm really feeling that. I'm feeling that because I was woken up by Ted at 5 a.m. this morning, and I know I was grumpy with him this morning. And I said to him, I'm being grumpy because I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I'm generally not grumpy. I'm generally quite patient. But 5 o'clock is just that I'm not as used to the sleep deprivation anymore as I was in the throes of new motherhood.
Yeah.
But I am tired today, and I can really feel how I'm flatter than normal, I'm quieter than normal, I'm less upbeat, and it's all related to not having had that one night of good sleep. And I definitely was grumpier with him and more impatient of like, hurry up this morning than I needed to be. So yeah, I'm totally feeling that.
And they, you know, how are they processing it? You know, they just don't have the wherewithal. So you did the right thing by saying mommy is whatever. And, you know, and we all make mistakes. And so sometimes you're going to shout at them, sometimes you're going to snap at them. And it's the repair that is really important. You know, I'm sorry I shouted at you. It wasn't you. Blah, blah, blah. You know, then basically they're not personalizing it. They're not sitting there thinking that, hang on, I made my mom cry. Do you know, they didn't make me cry. I was going to cry anyway. So,
My son has a thing where I think once I was upset and I was crying about something. He said, "Mommy, grown-ups don't cry." I was like, "Oh man, you need a lesson. Grown-ups don't cry. We cry all the time. You just don't know that we're crying." And it's
yeah,
interesting, isn't it? How they see you as they
yeah,
just think it's a different experience when you're growing up. So I
yeah,
had to explain to him, but actually, grown-ups cry all the time. Life is
all the
hard.
time, all the
So
time. And they need to see it to normalize it, do you
yeah,
know? Because you cry and then, you dust yourself off and then you move on, and that gives them permission to do the same, particularly if you're bringing out boys, for example.
yeah,
It's very important for them to be able to tap into that vulnerability and cry and move on.
I feel like they really need to see their dads having emotions as well, and
yeah.
not just bottling everything up. But I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's less within our control. But yeah, I think it's important. Again, going back to adolescence and that being all about raising boys, I think for them to see you can have emotions as
Yeah.
a boy and a man, and
Yeah.
that's fine and normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Keith. I think this conversation has been so refreshing because, I definitely think there's a lot out there about ambition, and our podcast about ambition, but I'm also interested in how ambition can be looked at differently in a way that doesn't allow you to burn out, or in a way where, you can make good decisions and still be ambitious, or you can manage your ambition in a way that allows you to, still enjoy being a mom. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes the messages out there are so like, if you're not ambitious, or if you're not doing this, if you're not working around the clock, then what are you doing? But I think it's nice sometimes to just look at things from a different lenses and learn
Yeah.
how we can just be conscious of how our ambition is impacting the children. It's important, isn't it? So yeah, that's definitely what I'm taking from this.
And there are different types of ambition, right? So there's the career ambition, that's one type of ambition. And then being ambitious for your children, right? So being that ambition of bringing up well-adjusted children that can cope with life, that is another type of ambition. So some women, that is their only ambition, right? What was it? Was it Jackie Kennedy? Well, the Kennedys, their mom, she said her only job was to bring up presidents, right? And that is a full-time job in itself. Okay, so is what are you bringing up? What is your ambition for those children? And for me, my ambition for them was to be well-adjusted humans and to be able to cope with whatever life throws at them. Because then when I'm not there, I know they're going to be okay. And so if that is the ambition, then you need to balance that, if you like, with the work ambition as well. And because they're both important, because the work is for you, this is something you're doing for you. And yes, okay, there's a financial bit that the whole family benefits from as well, and that's your own personal development, right? But if you ask me, there's no higher personal development than being a mother, because that stretches you in all sorts of ways. When you haven't had any sleep and the children are puking on you, and I don't know, you got your period and you just want a hot water bottle and curl up, but you can't. You have to get up and do the school run, and that stretches you. So that sort of self-development that you go through as a mother, that's great, but we don't recognize that as some sort of ambition being met. So we think that we're only achieving when we're doing an appraisal at work and it's linked to a bonus.
Okay.
This is another job, and unfortunately you're not being paid for it, and there's no bonus, but what you're producing is a whole human being that could come and be the next prime minister, that could come and be the next Einstein, right? And so if you are the one producing that, think about it. If you set up a factory producing Einsteins, for example, think about the government grants you'd be given to do that. But because we're all doing it on an individual level, that whole big ambitious job of being a mother completely gets undersold, like it doesn't exist, like it's not something that's important. But every mother should walk about, chest out, head up. I am doing the most important job on this planet, and it is true.
Let's make motherhood great again. Get a t-shirt.
There we go. There we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
Love it.
Just a shame it's from such awful source material.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you got to go soon, but where can people find you online?
At giftyenright.com. I'm there, and yeah, everything you need to know about me is there, and my socials are all there on the website as well. But yeah. It's been a pleasure talking to you, ladies, and
Yeah, thank you.
what you're doing is great, because mothers need this. You know, we really need this. We need to support one another, and you know, when I'm coaching mothers, I'm like, you know, if you see another mother, always make sure you're helping to bring her up. You know, because you know that rising tide, everybody benefits and stuff. So we need to help each
Love
other.
that as a philosophy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love that. Thank you so much, Gifty. Thanks for everyone for listening. See you on the next one.
Thanks a lot. Remember
Right.
to like and subscribe. Bye.
Bye-bye.